Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking a super fun and exciting video for you guys today, and honestly for me personally, maybe the most exciting video I'm going to be talking about this week. That is because the developer going by the name of junminlee has forked Shed PS4 specifically to focus on Gravity Rush 2, and they just released the 3.0 version of that fork, and honestly, if this wasn't real hardware, you'd have no idea, at least for this capture. I could have just put my PlayStation 4 in my capture chain, got the footage from Gravity Rush 2, and no one would have been any the wiser. But I promise you, and I know you trust me, I am playing this on the Gravity Rush 2 Shad PS4 fork, and the level of performance here is absolutely stunning. And honestly, PlayStation 4 Emulation is definitely making a lot of progress in 2026, and I feel like by the end of the year, you're going to have a bunch of games that are running as good as Gravity Rush 2 is here. And if you've never heard of Gravity Rush 2 or never played the original or this game, I can't stress enough you're missing some of the best games ever to grace any PlayStation piece of hardware. When I talk about the fact that modern gaming is getting a little bit boring, at least in my opinion, it's stuff like this, these super vibey, very creative, visually trippy games that make me want to go back to this era. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I will say junminlee has done an amazing job on making Gravity Rush 2 run this well. As a baseline, I'm using an i9-12900K with a 3080 Ti and 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is well over the minimum and even recommended spec for something like this. But honestly, in a lot of the efficiencies they brought into this fork, you're getting better performance on lesser hardware. So as long as you're not bringing a complete potato to the party, you should be able to get this to run at 1080p 30, and that definitely is impressive. And I will say here, if you watch all of the different visuals in the game, because of course, getting the visuals correct is a big deal, I was not able to see a stray pixel anywhere, any issues with any of the polygons or textures or overall performance. I really thought, at least in part, that I was just playing this on real PlayStation 4 hardware, even though I knew I was using Shad PS4. And that really is just a testament to how far this has come, because again, I'm telling you, and I know you believe me, that this is emulation footage, but there'd be no way for you to actually know that unless I recorded myself capturing this on my PC via Shad. And that, again, is just such high praise to an emulator like this, when you really couldn't tell the difference between real hardware and emulation. And obviously that's always the goal of software emulation. You want it to be imperceivable compared to the original hardware, and in some spots you want it to be even better, because with more powerful hardware than what was on board the PlayStation 4, you can get these games to run even better and in higher resolution than you ever could before. And considering Gravity Rush 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best PlayStation 4 games ever made, and probably Japan Studios' swan song, absolutely something you should check out. It really does still bum me out that Sony basically killed Japan Studio, because they made some of the most incredible experiences. Unfortunately, it didn't ever seem to be what the market wanted back then, and I feel like we're never actually going to see a Gravity Rush 3, which absolutely just bums me out, because this is a franchise that would be incredible in the modern era, and because Sony does have the PlayStation VR 2, I'd love to see a Gravity Rush 3 in VR. I don't expect it, because it seems like Sony just pretends that this thing doesn't exist anymore, but you have developers like junminlee and the rest of the Shad PS4 team keeping these things alive, and I totally get it. You can get PlayStation 4s pretty easily and cheaply now, but this game's definitely held its value, and it's one of those things in 10, 15, 20 years when a lot of this hardware is in the recycling bin, and PlayStation 4 and even 5 consoles are like $300-400, being able to preserve the library of PlayStation 4 via emulation is going to be crucially important. Because remember, this work today might not feel as essential because you can go out and buy a PlayStation 4 for pennies on the dollar, but in 20 years, it's absolutely going to prove itself to be absolutely essential, and that is important for the preservation of not only this game, but the PlayStation 4 library and gaming in general. And as you see here, every single cutscene works well, all of the cell shading looks incredible, and again, I can't point to anything, at least in my capture, that makes me think there's any sort of issues. Let's go into the first of two soundtrack samples, listen closely, take a listen to the audio, and you tell me if it sounds exactly like you would expect it to. And if you have played Gravity Rush 2 before, leave me a comment down below and you tell me your opinion of the game, because for me personally, this is maybe top 25 games of all-time list material. But here comes the audio soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back with a lot more detail on this one. I mean, that sounds exactly like Gravity Rush 2 should sound like to me, but you leave me your thoughts down below. And again, don't think that you need to have some sort of supercomputer or massive gaming rig to be able to play this one. The developer listed on the GitHub page the minimum requirements you'll need to get something like 1080p 30 locked out of this thing. A Ryzen 5 5600X, a GTX 1650 with 4GB of RAM, and then 12GB of system RAM. That honestly, if you have any sort of modern PC, is probably something you have under the hood. And this thing has been tested on the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme and other handhelds that actually will work relatively well. And that is the thing, a lot of the efficiencies here come down to improving the code for something like Shad PS4 and Gravity Rush 2 to actually lower the overhead as far as emulation is concerned. And there is even a custom launcher included in this fork of Shad PS4 that'll configure everything in the emulator for you perfectly, so you're able to sit down and play after you add the essential system library files, which is going to be on you. And if you want a Shad PS4 tutorial, leave me a comment down below. Maybe I'll make you one next week, because I know it is something that a lot of people are curious about. Now, as far as if this game can be played start to finish, I did talk to somebody else I know who's a massive fan, and they have played this game and beaten it. Now, there are a few crashes here and there, and they do seem to be at random, but junminlee has reduced them down a ton. That's one of those things. I can't say it's going to be 100% perfect 100% of the time, but in my capture of the intro areas, and again, trying to keep a lot of the spoilers out of this video, I didn't have any crashes, I didn't have any hitches whatsoever. It was just a smooth from start to finish experience, from the control latency to the visuals to the audio and the performance. Again, I could have been tricked to thinking I was playing a PlayStation 4 console if I wasn't the one actually doing the capture. And that, again, is just so impressive and just showing how far Shad PS4 has come. I feel like this time next year we're probably going to have a couple dozen more games that are working to this caliber, and I love that a developer out there loves the game so much that they decided they're going to fork it just to be able to run this one game near to perfectly, and in some instances even better than original hardware. And there's just something about Gravity Rush 2, its charm, its story setting, everything else including the visuals. It's just such a special feeling game, and I love that it is one of the quote-unquote first games on PlayStation 4 Emulation to work. Now, of course, we've had Bloodborne and everything else like that, but this one definitely is one that I think a lot more people need to experience. But if you did play Gravity Rush and Gravity Rush 2, leave me your thoughts down below. I remember going into the store and just seeing Gravity Rush on the store shelves for the PlayStation Vita. Haven't really heard anything about it. I thought to myself, well, that looks kind of fun. I should pick it up and give it a go. And it quickly became my favorite PlayStation Vita game of all time. I also have the remastered version for PlayStation 4 as well. But let's do one more soundtrack sample again so you can hear the audio emulation quality. And I'll be right back with just a little bit more detail to close out. So just so you know, if you do grab this fork and want to play Gravity Rush 2, the developer here recommends that you upgrade it to the 1.11 patch for Gravity Rush 2, because obviously the release version of the game on the disc was patched up at a certain point in time for better performance and better stability. So you want to give Shad PS4 and the Gravity Rush 2 fork the best possible opportunity to be able to emulate this thing easily. But other than that, it definitely really isn't that hard. Once you get everything set up, all you do is load up the game and you're playing it, and you just basically forget that you're playing this on a PC via emulation and not a real PlayStation 4. And like I said earlier, that's always the goal of every single emulator out there. You don't want people to think how it's being done. You just want them to sit down and enjoy some of the best games of all time or some of their favorite games of all time. And that's exactly what my experience was with Shad PS4 and Gravity Rush 2. I stopped thinking about just how impressive it was that this was emulation and just started enjoying the game. And honestly now, having gone through the intro area again, because it's probably been like 3 or 4 years since I played the Gravity Rush games, I'm probably going to sit down sometime in 2026 and play them from start to finish again, because they absolutely got their hooks right back into me. and that in and of itself is why I love something like software emulation. Yes, I own all of these games and I own all of the hardware, so I can play them anytime I want, but doing these testing videos and talking about the news, sometimes I'm reminded that it is time for a revisit of some of my favorite games of all time. And even all the 2D elements here, all of the different comic book panels, there is not a single thing I can point to, both visual as well as audio-wise, that would make me think that there was any issues in the emulation. Now, I'm sure somewhere later on in the game, there's probably going to be some sort of weird visual glitch, a tiny little aberration that you might notice. I don't think I'm guaranteeing this is 100% perfect. I'm just saying, in my time experiencing it, I had no issues with it whatsoever. And again, if you've never played this one before, you absolutely have to. It is such a fun, weird vibe, but if you've never played any Gravity Rush game, I can't stress enough, don't jump into Gravity Rush 2. It is a continuation of the story from the original, and you really are going to be lost, at least at the beginning, as to who these characters are, why they matter, and what their motivations are. And you can definitely check out Gravity Rush on the Vita or remastered on PlayStation 4. But if you don't play these games, I can assure you you're missing out on some of the best stuff Japan Studio ever made. And now that there is this custom fork of Shed PS4 for Gravity Rush 2, it's definitely a choice as to how to play it. But short of that, we are done. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. The link to grab the fork is in the description, but otherwise, you gotta play this one. Just do it for me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.